I feel real privileged to be able to do this. Surely some may say she's just another common California psychic, but no common California psychic would know 7 spiritual secrets of Meher Baba. So it is indeed an honor and a privilege to introduce to you the person who is going to share those secrets, our beloved Filis Frederick.
Thank you, Lois and Jay Baba. Actually, there's some tough acts to follow here. But I'll do my best. My spiritual secrets kind of got away. They're more than 7. The first spiritual secret is not to promise to give a talk at the Savas, but we'll skip that one. I got the first 2 from Virginia Small, who got it from one of the Monstery. 2 very special secrets. Baba actually called them secrets, and I enjoyed them so much that I did put them in the Awakener. The first one is, never hurt the heart of anyone. And that is really the whole love trip in a nutshell. People have asked me, what does that mean? Does that mean you can't be honest, you can't share feelings, can't be angry with someone? I think we all know how important it is to communicate and share feelings. But if you do it in a sense of love, that you want to express how you feel toward another person, even if it's a negative thing, that neutralizes it. Because sometimes we do have to be honest. Baba said another thing, absolute honesty, you've all heard that. And that includes many levels of honesty. It just doesn't mean don't cheat on your income tax or fib about a day off at work or so forth. It does mean emotional honesty. So there's a fine line there, how you deal with sharing feelings with others and yet never hurting them. And plus all the things that you might do that hurt someone. I know I hurt people, and I'm glad that I have friends that tell me when I hurt them, because it helps to learn. We've got to help each other learn in that regard. And the second one was to be grateful to God every day. And that gratefulness has many forms. And I've tried to put it to myself this way. You know, I wake up like everybody else, kind of grouchy sometimes, and I need my coffee. I think I shared that with Elizabeth. She wasn't conscious, so she had her coffee. And Baba was very good and always had coffee for her, I understand. On the Blue Bus tour, she had her early morning coffee. But you can wake up and say, thank you, Baba. Thank you, God, if you think of God. It's such a wonderful, I know it's a terrible cliche, but to be alive is such a marvelous thing. Little things are so wonderful. Just when you've been ill, for example, which I have, very ill, and you just think, well, the body is a wreck and everything's miserable, and you get well, you appreciate such tiny things, you know, like a spot of sunlight quivering on the floor, or flowers, or a crazy insect flying around. What a miracle. And just to be alive is such a privilege, and to know about Baba is super privilege. And I know I have tons of pictures in my house, but just one I can see when I get up, just wake up, and Baba's eyes seem to be focused on me, and I say, thank you, Baba. And then when all those little nasties happen, I try to say thank you. And that's the hard part, to thank Baba for something that is unpleasant or difficult. But he has said, for example, when Jean Adriel, left the ashram in Nasik, she said, thank you, Baba, for the wonderful times with you, the happy time with you. And Baba said, don't thank me for the happy time. Thank me for the suffering. And Baba gave me a little lesson in that too. Almost at the same time, in 56, that Baba had his hip problem. It was strange, a lot of other people had hip problems, including me. And my hip went completely out. I couldn't walk and all of that. And it never did get totally better, but especially in 56, 58, and 62, Baba would greet me in the morning. He'd go like this, "How's your hip?" And I'd go, "How's your hip?" And then one time in 58, it really got bad at Myrtle Beach. Suddenly, Baba knew I hadn't said anything to anybody, and he called me into his little lagoon cabin and said, "How's the hip?" And I said, "Baba, it kind of went out again." And he looked at me, and Baba's look is like an eternity. It's just, you don't know how long you've been looking into those eyes. And Baba said, "I give you a little bit of my infinite suffering." And I hadn't consciously said, "Baba, heal me," or anything. It's totally out of my conscious, but maybe unconsciously. But it was like a privilege to share Baba's suffering. And I relate that now to things that happen to myself or to anyone else, that you are sharing a great privilege with Baba. And he did say that during many times he sent us the message, "You are so lucky to be sharing with me during this period of my suffering or my humiliation." And I once had that experience very dramatically in a way. In 52, we had the privilege of one meeting with Baba, completely alone, with no mandali in the room at all. And that was when I was lucky enough. Baba said, "Have you any questions?" And I really, at that point, I was so blissed out by Baba that I didn't answer. And he said, "Those who ask for nothing get everything." So I lucked out. But then, immediately my real subconscious mind came up with a lot of the question, why had I suffered so much? And Baba took my arm, took this left arm, which I find interesting, took the wrist like that, and he made me feel like you'd say the blood of Christ going through your body with the infinite suffering, just a tiny feeling of Christ's suffering. And you never again, in a sense, ever say, "Why do I suffer?" It's a mystical thing. There was no words to it, but I'm skipping around. I always do. Forget notes, but anyway. So, another time we were with Baba, at the end of our trip in 56, and behind the scenes of this trip, which about 80 people took with Baba all the way from New York to Myrtle Beach to Hollywood and then up to San Francisco, behind the scenes, there was a lot of squabbling going on. I still don't know the whole story. Essentially, it was about money. And I thought many years later, that's our sanskara. That's the American sanskara. Which is what we blamed for anyway, our materialism. So there was always so Baba called us in at the end for this group meeting, and he made each person who was involved in this, fortunately it wasn't me, but get up and speak their piece and then harmonize. Then he said to us, it was so cute when Baba started this meeting, he had one eye, very severe, the right eye. The left eye was a little twinkle. I always say the right eye, is wisdom, and the left eye is love, So then he said, "I want you to have 1% of my infinite patience with each other." And I thought right away, 1% of infinity. I mean, you're stuck. 1% of infinity is infinite patience. So you have to have infinite patience with each other. And then we got this wonderful hug. He made us, first he asked for the prayer of repentance, and nobody knew it. That was bad. And Kitty ran to get a copy. And she recited it for all of us. And I swore then I'd memorize it. And then Baba said, "Now I forgive you all your," I don't think he used the word sins, but something similar, "up till today. Come and hug me." And that was a wonderful hug. It was just a wonderful hug. And we experienced Baba's patience with us. So we have to have 1% of infinity patience with each other. And as I said yesterday on the panel, the secret that he gave to the men in the men's darshan in 54 was to think of him at least once a day. Baba, in another phrase said, dress yourself with me, with Baba in the morning. Put Baba on in the morning. So when you go into your bathroom and you look at that haggard face, you know, you say, okay, Baba. I have another secret pasted on my bathroom mirror. Some of you may have seen it, which came in a letter to me in 1948. Everything happens by God's will. And that is a thought that is very profound. I had written him about my sister who was mentally ill. That was a big problem, things. And that was the first sentence in the letter. Everything happens by God's will. And it's worth thinking about. And the next one I got from Margaret Krask, who you heard a little bit about. I certainly can think of her as a role model. At least for me, she was one of the few Baba disciples who really had a career where you punch the time clock every day and have to work, earn your own living. And that's what I've had to do. And she's a great example of carrying Baba into the world, into her work, into the daily routine. And she said, be like a rag doll with Baba. She told me this before Baba came, and all these wonderful hints I got from Baba's close disciples before I met Baba helped me a great deal, I think. And this being a rag doll, it's sort of like the dancer, you know, the rag doll, the Trishka or something. So the essence of it is that you let Baba work through you. You don't give that resistance and to what may happen in your karma, but let him work it out. I'll give you a tiny example that happened to me. I never asked Baba about my career or anything like that. And I just let Baba handle it. I thought, well, he knows that I need work, I need an income and stuff. And in 1952, just before Baba came, you know, a week before, I got my first job in the toy business. And in my first week or two, I had to leave many days to be with Baba because he asked. And this boss never said anything, you know. Imagine the first job and you go up and say, well, I want Monday and Tuesday off. He said, fine, you won't get paid. And then over and over, a week in Myrtle Beach, you know, it was, of course, Baba's grace. But it just happened, and I've been in the toy business ever since. I didn't push at Baba, well, I want to do this, and I got to do that, and I must do this. And so it all happened, you know. And the same thing with coming out to California. I had no idea about it, but just suddenly it was happening because Baba wanted it to happen. And it's sort of like you don't quit working out your talents and your abilities, and what you must do is deal with life. But if it throws you a curved ball, then just relax. You know, Baba's got some other plan going, and you never know. It's like Mani said, only an avatar could keep so many secrets. He doesn't tell you what's ahead of you, maybe just the next day. Some gruesome thing or some very happy thing. So you just have to be, like Margaret said, or we say, go with the flow, but be a rag doll. I say go with the glow now. And that's what Baba says, do your best and leave the rest to me. Now that doing your best is important. That doesn't mean sitting on your duff and saying, Baba will do it. No, you got to get out and make the moves. You know? Or Baba said, if you take one step toward me, I take 12 toward you. And you who are in numerology, you know, you can figure that one out. It works. And I will read this one because this is very beautiful. Another secret from Baba. I say with my divine authority to each and all that whosoever takes my name at the time of breathing his last comes to me. So do not forget to remember me in your last moments. Unless you start remembering me from now on, it will be very difficult to remember me when your end approaches. You should start practicing from now. Even if you take my name only once every day, you will not forget to remember me in your dying moments. And I'll never forget, we went to the hospital to see Nadine, and she did die just in our presence. She was in the accident here, and those big, tremendous blue eyes looking up. And she passed away right while Noreen and I were there. Baba said many times of people who have done that, like that wonderful story, which I won't elaborate, but there was this man who, through faith in Baba, had brought this young child back to life up in the north. And Baba heard about it. At the same time, he heard about this young air pilot that had died in a crash. He was some relation of the Dada Chandis, I think, I'm not sure, who died going down saying Baba's name. And he said, more or less, I'm summarizing, that was his real lover, the one that died saying his name. And the other was unimportant, this miracle. Which I always remember too. So the stress is on love for him and not on doing miracles, although everyone thinks that's so tremendous to bring a child to life. He said, rather you should have died. He sent a message to that man, rather you should have died. And another little secret was my first talk that I heard about Baba was Narina Machiavelli's talk, and it was called Love is the Solution. And I always remember that title. Of course, that was when I first heard about Baba. But the word love is the solution. Well, I don't know how many of you suffered through high school chemistry, But solution is, something that dissolves everything. And I don't know the names of all those stinky things, but love is not stinky. But it does dissolve. You get to the point where everything crams up, your own emotions, your tensions, or the problem out there, the nasty boss, and all of that. What are you going to do? You're stuck. You've done everything you can, and then you just relax and say, love is the solution. Well, you can't go out and hug that nasty boss, no. But you can send love thoughts to him or her, or I try just mentally sending out love, which can be very difficult because you just have this lump here, and that's where I think of the solution. You just got to let that lump go, and that brings another thought that at the end of the day, it's like this blackboard here. You got all these scribbles. You know how in school you have these horrible formulas up there at the end of class? You just take an eraser and erase it all for the next day. And that, of course, is very psychologically healthy. You let it go. Whatever happened that day, let it go. That's and with love, if you can, the solution. And that it's like taking the garbage out every day, The next day, you'll wake up feeling better. Because if you let it accumulate, you have an awful load of hostility and anger, and then Baba will, pull a tripwire and you'll get this full blast from your own accumulation. And usually you blame others. We won't get into the psychology, but you usually blame others. But it's mostly your own accumulation. And so if you get rid of it every day, you have less to deal with, and you'll be freer to love. Because to love is, we all go around saying love, 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 Baba, love, Jai Baba, love everyone. But how to do it, that's another whole question. Another whole question. When we met Baba in 56, he was in good shape then. After the accident, he'd recovered, and he was in fairly good physical shape. And we went to meet him in the Delmonico hotel room. Baba called for some, and there were people coming and going. And I was there at that moment where Baba was pacing the room. He was in a small room, pacing up and down. And he said, I am like a caged lion. This is when he actually gave this little piece that you've heard. I am like a caged lion, and you make a pet, I'm summarizing, and you make a pet of me, but wait till that cage is open. Let the lion out of the cage. Well, symbolically, the caged lion is the lion of God, the Aslan, if you know your Narnia tales. Baba is that raging love of God, and we keep it in a cage. We do keep it in a cage. Baba's nice, he's over here, but never mind my scrap with my neighbor and the backbiting and the fight and all that. Baba's over here, he's nice, he's in a cage. But you see, you have to get him out of the cage, because then he's going to devour you and devour your ego. So that's why you're afraid to let him out of the cage. And actually, this can go on. We're only 12, 13 years from Baba's dropping the body. But what people are going to do, this is human nature, is build more bars and more bars on that cage. And someday Baba will be just that nice picture up there in church, and that nice hymn, and that nice textbook. No, you have to let him out of the cage. Now, how do you do that? But you have to realize the bars on the cage are your bars. You have put all those bars. Those are little ego bars that you've made. Your little sanskaras, big sanskaras. How many? 84 lakhs of lives of sanskaras. That is a hell of a thing to get rid of. As Margaret said, the ego is a 7-headed monster, and you cut off one head and it grows another. So we have to remove these bars. And that's sort of a part of the dhuni, too, that we're going to have. You throw a bar into the dhuni. You take out a little stick of sanskaras. But you can try to get Baba out of the cage by realizing that the cage is you. And you have to get rid of that cage. But I'll never forget how wonderfully Baba, his energy was just uncontainable. And you just sit there. I remember we had hired an artist, Marion Florsheim, Energy, had hired this poor artist to draw Baba. And he was scribbling. He was this, the kind of art where you do about 50 lines to get one line, that style. So he's going. He couldn't do Baba. But we never saw the painting. But it's the same thing. You can't contain Baba. But you can let him out of the cage. That's my secret. Well, another secret was, I live on a street called Hillside, and every day I have to walk up this hill and down the hill, and with groceries and stuff and everything. And I thought one day, this hill doesn't move at all. It doesn't change 1 inch. But going up it is such a struggle. But coming down is great. The hill hasn't changed at all. It's just my direction has changed. Going up the hill is hard work, and going down is so easy. And suddenly it struck me, well, that's like if I have a problem. If I'm going uphill, it's a horrible problem. But if I look at it another way, it's great. You slide right down. And that's the way I try to think if I have something to deal with. Am I looking at it in the right direction? Am I traveling up the hill or down the hill? Am I making a molehill out of it? I'm doing a hill thing up instead of down. And that's where I remembered Baba saying, like to Jean Adriel, thank me for the problems, thank me for the suffering or conflicts and all. So what is a conflict? Everything's conflict. All these great Shakespearean dramas and Ramayanas, it's all conflict. What is it for? It's for you to learn to grow through it and get rid of the ego that's creating the conflict. You have to say, if you're in conflict with someone, it's two egos. Oneness can never create a conflict. So you get rid of half the problem instantly if you remove your ego. You see, the conflict part. And the way to do it is to look at it that way, as an opportunity. I know it's a horrible cliche, and I don't succeed at all, as all of you know very well, in the conflict. But to look at it in the right direction, you're going to go down the hill, and gravity will pull you down. It will seem so easy. If you're doing it for Baba, it seems so easy. And I remember the problems we had traveling with Baba. They seemed like fun. Horrible problems seemed like fun because you're going to think, gee, how am I going to solve this? I have Baba with me. This knot has suddenly got to go because Baba's with me. And they usually did get solved. And then Baba would be so pleased and happy. And even if he called you in with this other person, which happened to me, that you're having a conflict with. I love the way Baba worked. It is the way to work with people, I think. He made each one say their piece. Didn't take sides, he just said, each one say your piece. And now, embrace, forget it. And if you love me in that person. Love me in that. He asked this one person that I was with, do you love me? Yes, Baba. She wouldn't look at me, Love you, Baba. Well, if you love me, then love me in Filis. No. That was. But you see, Baba was trying to make the point that really you can't have a conflict with someone if you really realize that they're Baba. I had I do have these little mystical experiences, or whatever you call them. In early days with Noreen and Elizabeth, we had all sorts of people and a lot of odd people. And one was some baroness, somebody or other. And we were out in Winston, Connecticut. We'd had a retreat there for a while, and guests were invited out. And this woman had been invited. I don't know what the heck she'd done at all to upset Noreen and Elizabeth, but they told her, back to New York, gotta go. The hook, okay? I didn't ask what it was. But she came to me and she said, could I meditate with you a moment? And I said, sure. So we sat there in my little room there, and suddenly her face totally vanished, and there was Baba's face. It was so beautiful. And I thought, it was like a tiny lesson for me. I don't, whatever she'd done, I'm sure, Elizabeth and Narina had their reasons, but it taught me something, that someone who's going to be the outcast and the baddie and the one nobody likes or the one who misbehaves, that's probably just the one that Baba, that Baba's always there. And we do get characters, through the years. And it helped me a lot to deal with it. I don't know whether I've gone past 7 or not, but... Another little one I have. Pet name for Baba. That's a silly one, maybe. But I know that the Mandali had pet names. Baba had pet names for you. And it's like bringing Baba close as sort of someone, again, in your family or like a sweetheart. And through the years, we had little names for Baba. Baba Lee, that's sort of German Lee, Baba Lee. And then Baba had little pet names for you. And also little gestures for you. And some of them were really, Baba's the perfect mimic. Like Fred Frey, he had a tick, you see. So Baba would call for Fred. Fred Frey. And John Bass. And Phyllis Adele, Phil Adele, we were like this. That was Baba's name for it. And that meant that we were, I guess, twins or something, another life, who knows. And then if I was there and Adele wasn't, where's Adele? I had to run for her, or she had to run for me. That's the worst thing, to run for somebody else who wasn't there. And you say, oh, you're going to miss Baba. You had to go get this person who was late, or, right? The heck with them. Why can't they be here? Why do I have to miss to go after them? Baba was very particular about your being there. I'm skipping to another subject, but for the next, when Baba comes again, remember this, folks. You next 700 years, don't leave Baba's presence without, it's like, I suppose in royalty, I don't know, the English have it all straightened out, but you don't leave the royal presence without permission, and it's sort of like that. You don't run off somewhere or disappear or have your own little thing. And some very interesting lessons are given, especially on this 56th trip, that people who got very excited about doing some spiritual service, quote unquote, for Baba would run off and do something, and then Baba would say, where's so-and-so? Why aren't you here? Some good stories about that. And the Baba says, you won't see me for 700 years. And, if you were late, or you ran off to have a snack, or you wanted to whatever, and sometimes just thought you were doing something for Baba. I know at that dinner in the movie you saw last night, It was a lovely dinner at Longchamps, but it was in the same building where the Winterfelds were. And Ella thought Baba looked cold. I don't know why. She thought he was shivering. And she went to her apartment to get him a jacket. And that was just the moment when Baba got up, as you saw, to go around and touch and greet the people there. And there was this empty seat by Fred Winterfeld, and Baba said, "Where's Ella?" And so when she came back and offered the sweater to Baba, I didn't know at the time what had happened, but Baba looked at her quite, where were you? And you see, she missed. And she had the same thing happen to her in Myrtle Beach. It's like Baba wanted really to give her this little lesson, which was for all of us, because we all did these things. Baba had said then, "Now I want you to the Winterfelds, to Ella especially, I want you to be with me in the barn in the morning," which began at 9. Well, Kitty had asked her to cook some special dessert for Baba. And she thought, of course, that was wonderful. And she went and helped Kitty in the kitchen. And she wasn't there in the barn. And when Baba came out of the barn, I happened to be standing right there. And Baba called for her and said, "Where were you? I told you I wanted you there in the barn." And it was, quite a scene. But it's not, it's symbolic. And you have to see it on that level, that you're always with Baba. You don't get caught up even in the ideas of that we are trained and we must, selfless service can also get in the way of actually being with Baba. It's like the old story of Mary and Martha, you run off to the kitchen or something. And it even happened to Kitty. On this trip of 56, Baba always had sort of a retiring time, But we had gone to Mayermount. We had a lovely day up there with Baba, which is another whole story. And on the way back, I don't know whether it was the dancers or someone had asked Kitty out for a meal. Now, Kitty always prepared Baba's food. She was cooking Baba's spinach on a little sterno can in her bedroom in the Hollywood Hotel. It was so cute. But she thought, well, Baba's taken care of. He's going back. With Agnes was driving him back, and somehow she thought it would be okay, and she said yes to this group that invited her for dinner. Well, when she came back to the hotel, Baba had no food, there was no open kitchen in the hotel, and it was a big scene, and even someone who'd been with Baba so many years just forgot that one little thing of always being there with Baba, and it's kind of, it got rubbed into me too. I goofed. At the same time, in the Hollywood Hotel, I had this lesson, don't leave. But then Baba retired. We greeted him, said bonsoir to him in the elevator as he went up to his room about 5:30 after the day-long meeting with people. And I thought, well, now it's okay. We won't see Baba again. And I had told my mother to come up there to meet Baba. I won't speak to you, I won't talk to you, I won't do anything. We're with Baba. And she said, I understand. So then I thought, well, Baba's gone to rest, to retire, and now I can talk to my mother, whom I hadn't seen for a couple of years. So we met, we went out for a bite. And when I came back, Billy Eaton grabbed me and said, where were you? Where were you? Baba called for you. I thought that was one of the worst moments, that Baba called for you and you weren't there. And I cried all night, and then I got up early and went to the hotel. We always hung around outside Baba's bedroom, to get this morning hug. As I've said before, to get that morning hug from Baba. It's a good way to begin the day. And the door opened, and there was Baba on the couch. He looked so beautiful. And he said, where is this girl that had been keeping me awake all night? And then I got this hug. But I think, you see, Baba set it up. There was no way I could have imagined that after he'd gone, But it taught me, too, that you can't even, relax for a minute, But the reason Baba does it, though, is to stir up more love. I think all of you will agree that when you goof, and you can't fail to goof because Baba will, he sets up all these little tripwires. You're just going to do it no matter how smart you are. Because you feel you failed Baba and you get all this emotion and then you want to do more. You want to be better. You want to please Baba. Always please Baba. I don't know. I think I've run out of 7. Oh, I think the last one is to have a sense of humor. You know, one of the first days with Baba, and I wasn't, you know, it was all new to me. Baba looked, we were seated with Baba in the women's house, guest house at Myrtle Beach, and Baba would come out with these little random things. And he said, the whole creation is a joke. He said it's sometimes a very sad joke, but it's a joke. And I never forget how Baba looked. His face, before the accident, he was so beautiful. And sometimes a very sad joke, but a joke. Then immediately he started to smile. And you know, it was like the two sides of Maya. And then he asked us to tell jokes. That's where Anita was very good. I remember the joke he told one time. I don't know if it's this particular moment, one of those days, Baba had gotten kind of serious, and then he said, so it goes like this to Anita, and Anita immediately said, oh, well, Delia, before she came on this trip, was 50, she went out and she bought a special pair of panties, red lace panties to wear here. And Baba loved it. I thought, oh, how wonderful. Anita could come out. It was just so, of course, this was with only the women were there. But she had such a gift for that. And I admired it so much that you could come up with the little thing that would amuse Baba. We always had to keep the joke sort of, you know, little line there, you know. But, Ivy Deuce was very clever. She had the Reader's Digest under her chair, you know, and they were about the right speed, you know. And then Dr. Kenmore was awfully good at it. He'd come up with these great Jewish jokes, you know. Some of them were a little shady, you know. And one time we were in the barn, and he told this joke about the elephant and the little car that goes under the parade. There's a parade, and this little open car goes under the elephant, you know. And the other man says to the driver, well, gee, I didn't know it was raining. And it's the elephant joke, okay? And so there's 2 people up in the last row in the barn. It's not the kind of joke you tell Baba, you know. And Baba said, Harry, tell a joke again. Those 2 people didn't. And Joseph Harb was awfully good at amusing Baba. He had that light touch too. I don't remember any special thing. But I love Baba's sense of humor. And Baba says, you know, how could God not have a sense of humor? What?
Because when the atmosphere became too heavy.
Too heavy, right.
When the atmosphere was, and nothing was, sort of
sticking.
Sensitized the people.
Yeah.
They got out of themselves. And then we could, and you see, it wasn't just, that was just an outer thing, but the inner thing was.
That's it. He knew we were, you know, getting too heavy, yeah, too serious. And I agree with Anita. I love that side, and you too. That side of Baba. Well, the spiritual path isn't that bad. You know? There's the other side of it, that it's fun. And that's the Krishna side. That's the Krishna side. I remember at 52, Kitty came out one day, because this is a week before Baba left for his trip, and the accident and everything. And she said, we haven't seen Baba like this for years, with that Krishna, you know, the intimacy, the laughing, and the sweetness and all, with the gopis. If you haven't read about Krishna and the gopis, that was a time when the God-man played the role of the young, happy shepherd and his gopi shepherdesses dancing and enjoying, and, you know, the light, lovely side of God. In all the incarnations of Baba, there's always the humor somewhere. I'm sure that we haven't heard the real story about Jesus and his humor. You know, they're kind of churches. But I know it's there. And we had a speaker at our center, Carl Ernst is here, who's a specialist in Muslim history, and he gave a talk on Muhammad, some of the intimate things that even haven't been translated, I believe, thoroughly or brought forward, how Muhammad was and what a wonderful sense of humor he had. And just, I can't tell the stories offhand that he told us, but it sounded so much like Baba, so much like Baba. The attractiveness of Baba was that lightness. And when he would, when we were go like this, and when we were all standing around him at the airport in '56, this 3 weeks with Baba was not only a three-hanky trip, but it was pretty intense. And we got into the airport and we just were sobbing and crying and standing in a circle around him, and Baba went around like this, pinching a cheek, smile, like you did the gesture beautifully yesterday when one of us looked too solemn. Ivy always looked kind of solemn. She does have trouble with her eyes. She had tear ducts that always went. But somehow she also was kind of solemn, and Bob would go, "What's the matter, Ivy?" It's just like anybody who got a little too, And in fact, most of the time that we actually spent with Baba were not discourses, but kind of relaxing things, music. We spent, in '62, we heard a great deal of music and entertaining things. And it was really a flow, because then your heart opens a little bit. Humor does break up this nasty old ego and its cage. I think I've run out of secrets. How about you telling me some? Some questions. Maybe anybody has a question. Don't look at this shirt. I'll tell you the story of the shirt. I was invited to go to Australia by Bill LePage, and I don't know what he had or hadn't told them there, but when we got there, Ursula Van Buskirk traveled with me, and David Miotke, the wonderful singer. They heard a rumor that before I came, they didn't hear much about who I was, you see. And the rumor had gotten around that I was a psychic. And that tickled us so. And I was telling the story to Leslie Tejada that the rumor had gotten to Australia that I was a psychic. And I said, "Yeah, I'm just another common California psychic." And she said, "That's great. I'll send you a shirt." So that's my shirt. And the California psychics do predict a lot of ghastly things. Mayor Mount and Fred Winterfeld kind of humorously said, "What is with California, especially Los Angeles, all these crazy groups and, gurus and everything?" And was kind of making a joke, a New Yorker always puts down Los Angeles. So I said, "No." He said, "Southern California is a place where the veil, next to India, it's the place on the planet where the veil is thinnest between the gross and the subtle." So that accounts for Southern California. Yeah, eat your heart out, San Francisco. Well, I think that's enough controversy. Jay Baba. What?
We're keeping our water.
Yeah, hang on to the water. Huh? I can't.
Question,
Yeah.
Did you ever have a presence with Baba where you could just sit and talk about sports and things like that?
Sport.
How's your job going? How's it going? How's the car running?
I'll tell you, the small talk of the avatar is very good at small talk. I remember Narina talking about how the first visit of Baba to Paris was at Consuelo Cedeza's house. And her mother was a very social person, very, real social, whatever, French social. And so Baba, she said, just sat there and made just perfect small talk, and she said it was so perfect, like the avatar can do everything perfectly. He could also have tea with you and do all the little social chit-chat. And I just loved that picture of Baba, just tuning in to the person. But Baba's social chat was really interesting. In the morning, he'd say, did you sleep well? Did your bowels move? I'm being real honest. Are you healthy? Are you enjoying your food? And everything. But the thing about the dream was very funny. That first week I was with Baba, I didn't sleep at all. I was having all these weird dreams and experiences. And that was so funny. Baba said, did you sleep well? And his eyes twinkled. And then he said, did you dream? I said, yes, Baba, I had dreams. And later in the day, every day, he asked me what I had dreamt the night before, and then I had to tell him the dream. That was like a psychoanalysis, and explain the dream. And that was really fascinating for me, because he knew that I was very interested in dreams and psychology of dreams, Jungian interpretation, all that. And so I had to tell my dreams to Baba, and he interpreted them. And every day I had some new experience. But I'll tell you the one, you've probably heard my stories a million times, but this dream, I dreamt of an incredible tortoise, a great big tortoise. And I looked at it, it had Baba's eyes. And then there was an incredible serpent. Again, it had Baba's eyes. And then this elephant, it was incredible. I remembered right now I could see those eyes, just loving, twinkling eyes of the elephant. It was Baba. And then there was this huge tree that I couldn't see the end of. And I put my hand on the bark, and the minute I did, I felt Baba's energy. And it was Baba. So I'm telling this dream to Baba the next day. And Baba said, now you see me in everything, you will be afraid of nothing. And of course, those figures are very symbolic. If you study the history of art, the 10 incarnations of Vishnu that are reproduced in Indian art are the incarnations of Vishnu, which is the second part of the Hindu Trinity: Brahma, Vishnu, Shiva. Vishnu is the creator, Brahma, Vishnu the preserver, or Pravartigar is another word, and Shiva the destroyer. Vishnu, of the Trinity of God, is the one that incarnates as avatars. So avatars of Vishnu symbolically are represented in Indian art. And these animal forms are there, the 10 incarnations. And one is a turtle, and one is the serpent, the Kundalini serpent. The turtle on which the whole creation rests. And the elephant, of course, wisdom. They have Ganapati, the elephant head. That whole story is very interestingly told as a mythology explained in the new book, I always get the nothing and the everything and the everything and the nothing, which is nothing and the everything. Interesting how Bob explains some of these old myths. And then the tree is the tree of life. It's got a special name in Hindi, which I don't remember at this point. The whole tree of creation, and the Kabbalah, the symbol of the tree of life. So these major symbols of Baba's energy in creation were in the dream. So for you who are interested in symbology, you see Baba is the energy of the universe, and it has Baba's eyes, you see. Baba was a great mimic. He told us the story of Monstery and the snake story, and I was just doing that, and he goes, the snake's eyes. Look at Monstery, he did the whole number. It's so cute. We love Baba telling stories. It was just, you can see a little bit of that in Mani, how she is just a natural-born storyteller, and would have made a great actress, I think. Yeah. I'm babbling on. Stop me. Give me a question.
What is the story of Monstery?
The Monstery story is really interesting. You've met Monstery. She's just petite. I don't think she's 5 feet high. And very... Huh? Yeah. And Baba, during the new life, left the whole ashram in her care on Mehrabad Hill. I hope I'm getting... Jacko, stop me if I'm not getting this story. And she was told not to cross the railroad tracks, which she still doesn't, except to go to the doctor or something. So she, this little frail lady, is the caretaker of this huge property while Baba's gone. So she said, Baba, what'll I do? Especially about snakes. He said, here's my cane. He gave her his cane. And keep this on your bed, you see. So one night she wakes up and there's a huge cobra on her chest. And Baba, that's when Baba did, the eyes are. And so she picks up this stick, because she was totally obedient to Baba. Picks up this stick and, saying Baba's name and very frightened, pushes the snake off. But you see, if she hadn't been totally obedient, always had that stick by her bed. It's a good lesson, total obedience to Baba, even something you don't understand at the moment. But when she tells the story, it's great. But when Baba did those snake eyes, that was... Anyway, Jai Baba.